No changes look to be on the way for the New Orleans Saints when it comes to offensive play caller. What does that mean for your favorite team? We got all that and no lanyard on today's Locked On Saints. Hurry up. What's going on, everybody? Ross Jackson here, daily host every Monday through Friday of the Locked On Saints podcast, your daily podcast covering the New Orleans Saints. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For those of you that are everydayers, you know we always do a 30-minute show, a half-hour show pretty much every single day, but every single Monday through Friday at least. Here to get you all caught up on all of the daily goings-on with your New Orleans Saints, including live shows in the afternoon. But sometimes we don't have practice, and therefore I haven't been doing the live shows. So that's why I wanted to start this sort of short-form content thing. This will be really the only time that I take the time to explain this, because I want to get to the content for you here. But this will be weekly, Monday, Tuesday, or any day that the Saints don't have practice, so like a Friday after a Thursday night game or something like that. So what I want to do on the hurry up is focus on the biggest story from the day. And then right after this, you're also going to be able to catch the extra point, which is me answering a question from an audience member who, wants to know what's going on with the New Orleans Saints and just kind of pinpointing a good question that's out there. So I want to start off with the biggest story today, which is that Dennis Allen told us during his day after post-game presser that there will be no change to play caller, will be no change to offensive coordinator, coaching staff, anything like that. And that was much to the chagrin of a lot of New Orleans Saints fans who wanted to see a change, and understandably so. Look, the New Orleans Saints are on pace right now to have their lowest points per game total in nearly 2 decades. The 2005 season, the Saints averaged 14.7 points per game. Right now, they're averaging just 15 and a half. Last year, they also had their lowest in that span at just over 19 or just under 20 points per game. I point that out because common denominator is now what we have to start looking at. The New Orleans Saints on the offensive side, if you want to know why so many Saints fans are asking for a change at offensive coordinator, asking for a change at play caller, it's because if you look over the course of the past 2 seasons, not just the 4-game smaller sample size, it's been 17 games plus 4, so 21 games so far of a New Orleans Saints offense that for the most part has struggled. We're coming up on a year now since this New Orleans Saints team has put up 30 or more points, and they haven't put up 21 or more since they played the Rams back last November. So we're nearly a year away from that at this point as we cross over into October as well. This New Orleans Saints team for the past 21 games, the past year and 4 games, have struggled to put points on the board, whether that's by scoring in the red zone, not being able to stay on the field on third downs, whatever it might be. This team has struggled to put points on the board. Dennis Allen has said it. Pete Carmichael has said it. Derek Carr has said it. Several players have also noted this issue. This isn't an issue that is a surprise to the New Orleans Saints. They see the final score on the way back to the locker room. So when you have to look at all of the different things that have sort of reared their ugly heads around that New Orleans Saints offense over the course of the past 2 seasons, you look at things like not attacking the middle of the field, not being able to score in striking position in the red zone, these 2nd and 10 runs after an incomplete pass that are back into the trend for the Saints. These, deep shots on 3rd and short, a team right now that against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on 3rd and 5 or shorter average 17.7 average yards through the air in terms of their attempts. That's an unnecessary amount of pushing downfield in those situations. By the way, the Saints in that same game on 3rd and 6 through 10, 6.5 yards, a number that makes a lot more sense. So we're seeing all of these things, not just with Derek Carr, but a lot of these things we saw with Andy Dalton, a lot of these things we saw with Jameis Winston. You can throw Taysom Hill in there as well. So the analogy or the example that I've been using is, if you have a lamp that doesn't work, and then you have 2 other lamps, and you plug all 3 of them into the same wall socket, and none of the 3 of them work, it's probably not a problem with the lamps. It's probably a problem with the power outlet. So at that point, you have to start looking at what's the common denominator here. And right now, the common denominator across all of the offensive shortcomings that the New Orleans Saints have had over the course of the past 21 games, not just 4, 21 games, it's the play caller. So I understand why people are coming at this from the Saints have to make a change. But I will say this. I do understand the team's unwillingness to leap to that right away, because there's really not an example of any change of play caller mid-season that has made a team better. There's not many of those examples at all. Now, you could be playing at the exception, and certainly you have to wonder at some point, can it get any worse than what the New Orleans Saints have been putting out on the field, averaging less than 5 yards per play, less than 4 yards per play in certain situations? Can it be any worse? The only way it can go from here is up. And maybe that's the way that the New Orleans Saints are looking at it as well. But it's for certain that something somewhere has to change. And hoping for things to change without making a change might be the wrong decision for the New Orleans Saints. Only time will tell. They have a weak New England Patriots defense, a lately very good Houston Texans team on the way. Then they have a Thursday night game against the best quarterback that they'll play all season in Trevor Lawrence, the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's an opportunity here for them to maybe start off on the right foot against that weak New England Patriots team. But then after that, you have to be able to sustain success. One game is not going to change all of these people's minds. So if you're the New Orleans Saints, you got to get this fixed. You got to get it right. And you got to do it quickly. Because right now, the time is ticking here on the Hurry Up. Appreciate everybody for coming through for our new short form content here. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at, without a change at offensive coordinator, how can the New Orleans Saints make some improvements? That's our big question over on the Extra Point, which you can find on the Locked On Saints podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube as well. I'm your host, Ross Jackson, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day here on Locked On Saints. See you again soon.